Hold on to your baskets or any other body part in 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Nitty Gritty with your hosts, Mark Rao
and Deb Monroe, a podcast with no boundaries that tells it like it is.
This ain't your mama's show.
This is the Nitty Gritty.
We're back. Hello, everybody. I'm Deb Monroe.
And I'm someone else.
Oh, okay.
Actually, you're someone else who's actually been on a holiday, so you're probably relaxed for the first
I have been. It's been a jolly holiday. Yes, actually, yeah, it was wonderful. Back in the saddle again and stuff's running. I'm Mark Rao, and this is the Nitty Gritty.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. We're talking about everything that we can and what moves us and keeps us alive in our voice acting industry. Now, I think today what we'll talk about is experience versus inexperience and what differences there are. I mean, we've both come from, different channels of how we entered the industry, obviously. And we've talked about that before in previous episodes and stuff. But it's really also important for people to understand that we view things differently when we start than when we are more experienced. So I'm 30 years in, you're probably 40 plus years in, yes?
50 plus.
50 plus? Is it 50 plus?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because you've been doing it since you were a kid, right? That's such a...
Yeah, that's it. I was 3. Yeah.
Now, when you started, Mark, now we've talked before about our starts and stuff, but you were more into the music scene, right? Not the...
Well, I actually, I've always done the voiceover stuff. That's always been my passion. That's what I've done. I basically bullshitted my way into a music studio.
Right. That's what it was.
And lied my way. Oh, yeah, I know engineering, sure. And I knew enough that I could stupidly go, well, yeah, that's an Ampex ATR 102. And that's and then it's like, okay, so you need to buy us, Ampex Grand 456 tape at +3. What?
Yeah, sure.
I have to do what? Does that mean it's not a nice person that it's by? So it really took. And in fact, thankfully, they had turned the Studio 5, which I was in charge of, into a media studio. So it was all doing radio spots, trailers, all of that kind of stuff, a little bit of ADR and stuff. I'll tell you, it's a great training ground to be familiar with quarter-inch tape. And I know everybody goes, well, that's old school. But the thing is, too, when you're editing things, believe your ears. People have gotten into this mode where they're looking at this, but there's the waveform. It's like, but you're missing like a quarter beat here and the hair on your neck goes up. It's like, nah, that's a bad edit, and they're simply not hearing it, and it's like use your ears versus your sight. And I think that will make a big difference.
It's true. Actually, it's amazing how when you do get more experienced, you guys can not just in the sense of reel to reel, even in wave graphs, you guys can visually read wave graphs. You can visually see where breaths are, where you've spiked, things like that. So you get good at that. Now, when you first started, Mark, were you eager? Were you desperate? Were you willing to do anything?
Oh, sure. The whole thing with this business is it's very easy for it to consume you.
Yeah,
and you live this 24 hours a day. It's the same thing as going to conventions. It's similar people. It's if you have a partner that understands you, and understands the ups, the downs, and what you are doing, then that's very, very helpful. A lot of the time you don't. You'll have somebody that, and especially if you're getting started and you're spending some money on equipment and on training and on, if they don't understand, it's like, well, when are you going to start getting a return on, an ROI, return on investment? You keep spending and spending, that kind of thing. I think the key, honestly, is nobody is going to believe in you like you do.
Yeah.
And if you really seriously believe you want to do this, don't get into this because, this is cool, I'm going to be like in a limo and I'm going to make millions. And, it's like, it doesn't, that will come, if eventually, but get into this because you enjoy it and it's silly. I mean, we get to sit in a room and talk and get paid for it. So that portion of it is phenomenal.
And I think you brought up a really good point, and I've actually, in fact, wrote an article on it forever ago that is still valid today. It's so important that you educate your family on this industry, because what happens is they're watching you get very excited and eager about things. So, for example, what Mark was just saying, you've spent all this money. That's one of the first things. They're like, really, are you going to make some money with this thing? Can you afford this? You're not booking, so how can this be good? But they really don't say that to you when you're in university or college. They don't say to you,
Right.
you haven't gotten a job in 6 years. They just wait for that 6 years to be done. And that's the difference. Is this is a college university style of education. It takes years to develop. It takes years to become full time. It's not as easy as just knowing the right people anymore. It really is. You have to know what you're doing to get in there. And our families get to hear all the time how excited we are. Oh, I'm up for this role. I got this audition. I got this really cool audition, and I'm so excited. And then families ask a week later, well, what happened with the audition? And you're like, oh, I didn't hear anything. And so the families watch you celebrate and then get disappointed, and you celebrate and get disappointed, and your families love you.
The time comes though where you're not as verbal with that. Just we understand the fact that you're a professional auditioner, and so when I audition for hey, how did it go today? It was great.
Yeah, good.
I mean, I don't go through line by line. Oh God, there was this thing I didn't see. It's like, yeah,
This,
whatever.
I did this.
And when you book, it's like, that's awesome. I mean, it's but there does come a point where it's not that you're losing that spark, but it's not the excitement that it was originally.
Well, you start
Man,
learning
I
that
booked this
auditioning is actually what
franchise.
sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. You learn that auditioning is what you do for a living. So it's that the jobs are the gravy. Yes, they're the ones that pay, but the auditioning is what you're actually doing for a living. And so Mark's 100% right. You start off, and I notice this with students, and you kind of forget when you've been in there for a long time that their first audition, they're hanging on to it for a month.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, oh, I might still get it, and then you forget that, oh yeah, you don't realize yet you're going to audition thousands and thousands of auditions.
I've worked with people and done I sent the audition in on Friday. It's Monday. I haven't heard anything,
Haven't
and it's
heard.
like, and chances are you won't. I
Yeah.
mean, it's that's just the nature of the beast. You do it and let it go. And the booking, that's the gravy on the I mean, or the icing on the cake. It's or gravy on the cake if it's a shitty cake. But it's but so it's really put stuff into the audition and then just let it go. And
have to.
really, it's a numbers thing. The more you're doing those, the better you are. It's very interesting. The pay to play sites. I know people are on that, and there are people that go, oh, I paid a whole bunch of money on that, and it's like, I don't know what that a whole bunch of money means. Nobody's ever really But the interesting thing with that is I've talked to people who have actually sent in auditions, gotten a response, like, oh, this is great, you were shortlisted, and the thing was never opened. So it's like,
Oh,
gee, that's
wow.
not suspect. Like, how did that work?
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
so that
Wow.
kind of makes you wonder, like, well, and again, there's people, oh, you don't need an agent, and there's, da, 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 and I made millions on the internet doing this, and and it's like the whole reason with an agent though is there's a vested interest in you working. They don't get paid unless you get paid, so they're
That's
going to really push you as a commodity and be on the phone upselling. Hey, it would be great for this project, and that becomes your front line. Why would you not want that?
Yeah,
That's a good
very
thing.
true. And it's funny you say that about the pay to plays, because back in the day when pay to play was under its first scrutiny, one of the I forget who it was, but one of the senior talent had done a full breakdown. She had kept stock of every audition she did, all the results for the entire year. And she released that information for the year. And at that time, she made $17,000 that year. And that was full time. Like, that was working around the clock, doing every single audition you could possibly do. And that's not enough for a full time wage. And so imagine that, guys, $17,000 to some of you, maybe, oh, and she made $17,000 off of that. It's like, yeah, but that's full time. That's working
And that's
full time. That's
Saturdays
not
and
your
Sundays.
that's
and
not
having
enough to pay your
be up
bills.
at 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure you're the first one in and all that kind of. Sure.
Not enough to pay your bills. Now, what's interesting as you grow, so in the beginning, you have all this investment you do. You make all these investments. You have the naysayers telling you, you sure you want to do this? You have to be strong enough to get through those and prove to yourself, never mind them, that this is what you want, no matter what anybody says, because you will get naysayers, especially in this industry. And even more so now, because now they're going to add on, not just can you make money at this, but what about AI? Everybody is now saying to people that are starting, oh, AI, which is of course a relevant conversation, but now that's another catalyst that people have in order to enter this industry, which means you've got to be pretty driven and passionate to be able to keep going in this with the naysayers that you get and the reality of some of the stuff that happens.
I just talked with a guy yesterday who has a very nice voice. It's unique. He's got good inflection, a little bit older, but I mean, the guy is decent. It's not just newbie, complete, plain.
Yeah.
He's been on one of the pay-to-plays for, I guess, a year and was complaining about the fact that he's auditioned 1,242 times and hasn't booked anything. He's been shortlisted, which, to me, all of the shortlisting bullshit is simply, all that is a teaser to get you to stay engaged. I mean, it's like, God, you were really, the client loved your, God, it was so good. That's why we didn't book you. I mean, it's like, well, what, really? And in the real world, I mean, you never hear, you'll get put on a veil. They'll put you on hold, what's your avails for next week, Sometimes those go. I had one a lottery company down here in the States. These guys put me on a veil. I swear to God, it must have been 14 times in a year. And finally, I got another idea. It was like, no, I don't care. This is stupid. I'm not going to do it. And of course, that one booked.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But
at the same time, though, you get the callbacks. The callbacks become your short. I just want to interject here only because I've always looked at shortlisting as, for me, not on pay to place, but as with agents getting callbacks and things like that. I consider like a shortlist. Yep. That is my gauge that I'm on the right path. So I do think it's important, but I never thought of it being bullshit shortlisting either. So that changes this.
Well, it just like the thing I was saying with him, how can you be shortlisted when you haven't even listened to the audition?
Yeah, that's
it's one of those things that it's an easy way. We're all basically lazy, and I hate to say that, but I mean, just, it's that human element. Well, what's the least resistance to get to the path that I want to get to, And so, it's true. I mean, wow, look at, are we out, in the hot sun digging? No, you're sitting in a room that's, may get warm with no air, but, sitting, talking, getting paid. The difference there is that, there's still a lot of work involved in this. And even though it may not be physical, it can be mental because, I mean, you do a 4-hour session of video game stuff and done. I mean, you're burnt out. I mean, it feels like you've run a marathon.
That's right.
It really does. And so, it's just that the whole key is, be true to thine own self. And if you believe in yourself and really that's got to be your focus. Don't listen to all the external, because you'll get, I think I've told this story before. My dad thought I was so full of shit. I mean, he was just like, well, people got to pay. What are you, an idiot? People don't pay to do that. I mean, why would you? I mean, that's stupid. It's that. And I go, well, you've got which is very funny because years later, he was the anchor at Channel 5 and years later, I became the announcer at Channel 5. I loved it. I was the part-time announcer working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. How many days are in a week? Really? So part-time was 4 days a week. That's okay.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, no kidding.
But it was kind of funny how that came around.
Full circle.
But there are people that don't understand that, it's very much like the lottery in that you can hit quickly and then you cannot hit quickly. But I think there's an awful lot of bullshit claims on the internet and snake oil salesmen that are like, hey, look, you can have this lifestyle if you follow what I'm doing. And it's like, that kind of the people that are genuinely doing this for a living. And again, I consider myself a journeyman voiceover person. That's what I've always done for a living. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But can you make a good sure, absolutely. Yeah. But you don't put, all of the ostentatious, pictures of here's my boat and here's my airplane and it's like, yeah. I mean, you're selling a bullshit lifestyle that really is not necessarily from that.
Well, now at the same time, I know back in the day, the wages were just such a, like, I'm not saying that the wages aren't still there sometimes, but for the most part, for you specifically more than myself, because my industry was non-union, it was more piecemeal together.
Sure,
There was never the big $300,000 jobs or anything like that
sure.
that was paid out. Whereas in the union, that was a norm back then.
Oh yeah.
Back then, there was only literally a handful of talent doing it. It wasn't
Mhm.
as vast as it is now. So that is just like, I think that reminds me of what we've done with, which is a little personal, but what we've done with, I remember my husband said, my ex-husband said, women should have never been allowed out of the kitchen. And I like wanted to kill him obviously for that statement. But what he
So that's why you're
explained to me
divorced. What do you
further,
want, Dateline?
yeah. Well, what he explained to me further, which I thought was a valid point, was that we fought for women's lib, which we have every right to do so. And I agree with it to a certain extent because I don't believe there is a gender specification of who should make more money. I think there should
No, no,
a
absolutely
good
not.
breadwinner in the family. But what he explained to me was there used to be better wages for the men to work because they knew the man was supporting the family. Then the women started working more and that started splitting the wages down. And I thought
Mhm.
that's a good point. That probably changed a lot of it. I'm not saying that's the way we should be. It just reminds me of that same kind of circumstance
Well, and
where
that's what you need to do really nowadays to cover your bases is don't get so specific. I've talked to people all the no, I don't do that. And it's like, well,
I
you
know.
need to incorporate. I had one person that I was coaching who got very, I mean, it was extraordinarily confrontational. It was like that. No, that's but no, it's me. It's just I'm doing me and that. And it's like, but that's not how it works. Well, I don't give a shit if that's how. And it was like, whoa,
Where it
just
lived
slow down.
then.
It's
Yeah.
like an agent is looking ideally for a utility player. Somebody. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what I get. Of course, there's going to be things that you excel more at and things that you aren't as good at. But
Of
make
course.
sure that you are covering the bases. That you're simply not going. Oh, I'm not doing that. It's the same thing. Whether God bless you for having morals and all, but
Of
realize
course.
this is an acting job. And
We
so
don't
I've
have
had
the
people
same.
that I oh no, I would never use language. Oh, I would never promote alcohol. Oh, I would never promote gambling. Oh, I would never and it's like it's a voice gig. It's
Yeah.
no you're acting. And so, it's like with language. If that's part of the character,
Yeah.
great.
You
Do
do
I
it.
walk around the house going shit, fuck
No.
man? No. I mean, it's not, but if that is something for a character and it's part of that character, then that's all that is. It's
Well, I
an
think the
acting
most
job.
important part to teach talent is that they're not the client. They have to stop putting it in as if they're the client because you're not the one who's paid for this to be on the air. You're not the one who's going to take responsibility for it either because your name is nothing. Your
Well,
name is
and
nothing if
you're
there's
setting up roadblocks before you ever get started. And they're
exactly.
going, how about oh no, I don't. And it's like, okay, there's roadblock one, there's another one, and the whole key to this, it's no different than a session. You want that session to go seamlessly, da 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 da. If there's an issue, got it covered. If there's a you got a backup plan. We talked about that in one of our episodes, as far as just covering your butt. And it's like, oh, but there was a problem. Oh, this isn't. Oh, no problem. Here,
Always
and
be
save the
ready.
session. I told you I had
And
one of those where it was wanky and wasn't working. So I went, tell you what, I'll run a Pro Tools session for you guys. We can just do this, just a Zoom session. Give me the stuff and I'll send it to you.
yeah.
Oh, great. And they were perfectly happy,
And
you
there are a
know.
lot of senior talent out there who are morally driven. So there are a lot of projects they won't do because morality, it doesn't work with them. And they've done fine by doing so. I
Sure.
think you and I are a little different. We'll take on whatever is given to us.
No,
I don't
I
put an
think to an
attachment to it.
extent, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has their, I
A
told you
limit.
my Scientology
Yeah,
story,
there's a limit.
and that they booked me. I didn't know what it was, and then
Yeah.
went in and realized what it was. And so the only thing I could think of in my infinite wisdom was butcher this. So they're like, "Can you just billboard Dianetics?" I mean, they were looking at me like, "The hell's wrong with this guy?" I think it's probably the only session in my
Yeah.
entire career I walked out and went, "Yes, I didn't book it."
I just
Um,
don't attach myself to the projects because they're not my project. I just don't. I have,
yeah,
it's not that I don't have morals because I do have morals, but I don't feel that I am actually the character. I feel my voice is the character, but it's not me. It's not my story. It's not my
sure.
project. I never paid for it to be on the air. So I don't have that personal attachment to it. And for the most part, although that's changing now a little more, no one cares who voiced the damn project. Everybody cares about the project, but maybe not who voiced it for the most part.
True, and it's just the whole key with that is if you're getting started, keep your morals intact. Absolutely, that's what makes you you. But I understand completely, politicals. Well, I don't really want to be involved, and that's fine. Now, I did a Trump parody for Bill Maher. This was when Trump was president, and I got literally within 20, 25 minutes, I bet I had 15,000 death threats. People were just like, watch your ass in the parking lot. And it was like, guys, it was a comedy bit. And it was like, I'm sorry, it was like a funny SNL bit. I wasn't doing a Trump impression. They were using cuts of him stumbling, and we needed a president that's there. Well, at least partially, and it was that kind, and it was fun. I mean, it was cute, and it turned into a complete poop fest. It was like, guys, I was the hired gun. I didn't write it. I didn't create it. They brought me on. It was like, and then it turns into, well, if you saw what they paid me, screw you, you would have done it too. I mean, it's like, come on, when there wasn't any terrible, it was just a funny piece. It's like Saturday Night Live. I mean, if you're going to get pissed off over, somebody doing a skit, well, then you turn it off.
Turned off. That's the truth. Isn't that the truth? And there's no censorship anymore. So it's such a different world that we're in that regard. Now, so we go through in the beginning, as we were discussing in the beginning, we go through a lot of stages in your career. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, there's a desperation almost. And so you're willing to take on anything. As you start getting further into your career and realize that, maybe you're making a good enough wage, you're feeling stable, you're feeling good about your career.
Well, initially too, feel free to reach out to people, but do it in a professional way. Exactly, yeah. I'm very open to somebody emailing me going, hey man, I'm just curious. Sure. I will, it's like, yep, I will answer this set of questions. Here you go. And give it to. Then if it turns into, well, it's like, no, we're done. This is not an information, center here. It's not the voiceover hub. Yeah. It's like, I'm more than happy to do that to get you rolling. But then there comes a point where, we all know that you have people that will do, a single session and then try and go, okay, so what kind of, what was that mic number again? Okay, so how much, and where would I order that from? And what kind of interface do I need? Okay, and what should I do? And so what do I need soundproofing? And so where do you get that? And where, and it's like, obviously you're fishing for information, and right. We've all been around the block a few times, so you understand what's going on with that. Helping out is fine, but don't be a total poop about it and be dishonest and sneaky, but that reaching out really can help you. I mean, you're starting out, wherever you may be, across the country in a smaller town, you've got, heard, oh, well, I'm not sure about Source Connect. Then talk to somebody, see what it does, see what's going on.
Well, I'm grateful there's anyone to talk to, because when you started, there wasn't that.
No,
you have a bunch of people to talk to. And I had some, which was basically people like yourself and Bob Bergen. And so, but I had to find you guys. It wasn't an internet global thing yet. People weren't known, and no one knew who anybody was except for locally. And even for me to find a book when I first started, the only book I could find and purchase was Elaine Clark's, James Allberger's, and more. And that was the end. So it was really
hard Randy for me Thomas to find, did her. Yeah.
And it was really hard for me to find. Oh, and Sue Blue. Sue Blue was actually the first book I ever got, which was fantastic. And she is the original author to writing a book for our industry. But
for those of you who don't, Sue is a phenomenal animation director. It's just really good. Yeah. And
phenomenal. Yep. I got to study through a casting director who studied her, I believe, or worked with her information that brought that to life. But we didn't have that opportunity. And now you guys all have that opportunity, which is such a blessing. And the industry is very
but that brings up a really interesting point, too. And that is, do a little work on the history of this business and see who was, oh, wow, who was that? That was Don Messick. Oh, wow, cool. Who was the voice of it? That was Gene Vanderpot, Daz Butler, all of these old, I mean, and I know it's not like, well, you guys are just old and that's a bunch of shit and that's not right. And it's like, but you need to have that
Birthing.
overall feeling of what this
Yeah.
business is, who came, because it sounds so trite, but it's like we are kind of standing on the shoulders of the people that built this
That's
business,
right.
and Dawes and Mel and, Mel Blanc, all of these guys, they're the guys that set up what we do now.
Bar.
And so,
Yeah.
know who the players are. I've had people, call me and go, so what do you do? And it's like, what, I'm not, obviously you've done zero homework, and it's not cockily. It's just like, I don't need to explain.
I know.
I'm not going to give you my resume. It's like, I
Exactly.
don't fucking care.
Well, and understand there is a history to research. There is a start to this industry, and it wasn't too long ago. That's the thing, and it's grown immensely since then. It used to be very local. Now the internet comes, and the internet makes everything very global. Now, when I first started, I was definitely I don't know if desperate's the word. I wasn't desperate for work. I was desperate to voice. I was desperate to be hired. But I got very lucky. I had my hands in a lot of cookie jars and was able to meet the right people that got me into the
But
right.
see, that's the key. You had your hand in a bunch of different cookie jars, and
I
that's
sure
what
did.
you want.
I worked my ass off to find those cookie jars.
Sure, but that is what this is all about.
Yeah,
it's like
it
this
is.
fire's going that, running a studio for as long as been there. My brain is constantly, this month is great. I'm already thinking first of the year, what's happening, blah, 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 because if you've got big overhead and people working for you that are depending on you, and it's a whole different mindset.
Well, what I've seen for myself in growth is so in the beginning, once I was full time, there was never an opportunity I wouldn't bring my studio with me. There was never an opportunity because at that time now we had internet, now we had portable studios, now we had this opportunity because I started with the online world. That's when I started, was when that started birthing. I became a veteran of the online world. I'm not a veteran in voice acting, but I'm a veteran of the online world.
Which made it much easier because it used to be if you went on vacation somewhere, you would have to I would always have to call ahead and have studios lined up, whether it be in Hawaii, whether it be in Europe, whether it be that I knew I could slip into if I had to be able to do something and keep everything happening.
That's right.
Do reach a point, and that's what we were talking about with this. I was gone for 3 weeks on vacation. It was beautiful all over the Mediterranean. We went to, oh my goodness, Spain, Italy, France, all the Greek Isles, Athens, back to London. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful trip. I did not take a rig. I was gone 3 weeks, and you know what? Just out of sight, out of mind.
And that's the first time you've done that?
Like,
Is that the first time you've done that? For that length of time?
Actually, yeah, I think so. Where I would always take at least, if nothing else, a Rode NT1A and a little, and a 2i2 something, a Focus or something, along with me to make sure I was covered. But it just was like, that you're defeating the purpose at that point. And my feeling was like, look, and lo and behold, yes, when I got back, it was like a tidal wave of shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it was, I got back on Friday, Monday night, I was working at 9:00, sessions, just not coaching, but actual VO sessions because all we needed, they put it off. But again, that was fine. They put it, they
put it off.
Well, where the hell, God, this is all screwed up.
That's
God,
right.
I hope you had a good time, you bastard.
Yeah, you really
like,
screwed us over, but we waited.
I came back. It was like, this was great. And so it's a very different mindset, and it's hard to get out of that. Yeah, but what if that audition comes? I mean, and invariably, if it's no different if you look at your plan and go, oh God, that's a good audition. Shit, that could, and it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
More auditions are going to come. It's fine. It's no different than if you don't fit that mold. We want non-binary talent. Well, if you're not non-binary, then fucking don't do
worry
it.
about it.
Just
Yeah.
have it. Don't go, oh God, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll cut my dick off.
I know.
You go through all of these, well, God, that's not fair. And it's like, no, it's fine.
It's
there will be a
major
zillion
FOMO.
other auditions. You're fine. It's
We get
okay.
major FOMO in voice acting, fear of missing out, because
Absolutely.
you,
And that's,
I think think that's the
huge.
thing is, so when I first started and again was more full time and when I was started coaching as well, I was telling people like, if you turn down that job, they'll just find someone else. And so that was a true statement back then. But now, and that would be the same for someone who's newer, still now, they will just find someone else. They have deadlines they need to meet and they will meet them. But when you start getting more experience and starting getting more regular clients, even if they're not regular clients, if you have your agent, which is your best friend who has been with you for a long time, hopefully they know what you're worth and they will sell that to the client. The client will wait for you. And so what happens is as you grow in your craft, you lose that desperation or that fear of missing out. I think the fear of missing out is always going to be there, but you accept that you're good enough. So it's almost like an earn shift as we age. We get more confident. We get rid of things in our life that are a waste of our time, that we spend a lot of time that we didn't need to bother doing. We don't need the smaller jobs anymore. We don't need the things that don't matter to us as much as we grow in our craft, so that it's not that we get fussy and turn down a bunch of stuff. We just get more comfortable to live a normal life.
Well, I'll see stuff
beginning,
even now if I'm at my place on the East Coast, and you have to be back in LA to do this. It's like, well, then they pass.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's not.
I'm
It's
good
not.
to miss
There'll
out
be
on that
another.
now.
It's okay. I'm not going to fly in just to do this,
Yeah.
gig. And it's like, I just had one. That was a Disney session. That was you had to go down. I had to go down to Orlando, and it was like, well, because they don't want home studio. It's like, well, my home studio is on par.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's like I've got a
Your
U87 with
own
an Avalon
studio.
7. Well, I mean, it's like it's on par with any.
Yeah.
But no, they did, and it was like, okay, that's fine. Just drive. It's like keep the client up. That's fine. Just go down and make an afternoon of it. It's not a big deal.
So the last animation I just did, I since COVID, I've been able to voice from home, whereas previous I was never able to do animation
Right.
from home, especially animation.
And that's changed
And
for
that's
the better
changed.
for talent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's changed. And so I live an hour and a half from the city. So for me, it is a pain in the ass. I will always go in, but an audition, I don't want to go in for an audition because it's
Sure.
5 hours of my day for one audition. It's just stupid. Like it's just stupid in my opinion. But that's my choice because I live further out of the city. That's my stupidity that
Now,
I.
what I've started doing with that is going, if you want me to do that, then it has to be a paid audition. And I don't mean, nailing, I don't mean charging data, but you need to at least cover, make it worth my while to go. And you'd be surprised at how often, if they really want you, go,
Will.
okay, that's reasonable.
And I think that's a really good education for people. I think people don't understand in the non-union world, we're not paid for callbacks and we're not paid for auditions. Like it just doesn't happen.
Well, you're
In the
very even
union
in
world,
union,
that's
very
different.
rarely. Not
No? It's rare?
no. It happened.
But
Yeah, it
callbacks
is
are
rare.
paid, right? Aren't callbacks paid?
No.
They're not. I thought they
Very
were.
rarely. Very rarely.
Oh, well, that makes me happier. I was
Yeah,
like,
no, it's
damn, are
not,
we missing out?
no, usually not. But again,
Okay.
the beauty of the whole thing too is, home studios, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, yes, it's great. You can sit there in your underwear and and whip stuff out and you're comfortable. You can get a drink of water, go pee, it's fine. But you're also become extraordinarily isolated.
Yeah, of course.
And, we get, into this mode where everything is encompassing in this little 4x4 thing. And it's like, oh my God, here's my,
It
and,
is
and
missing it out. Yeah.
times, take a break and do something, whether it's, if you got a dog, go for a walk with your, whatever. And I know it's such a trite thing and people go, whatever. And it's like,
It
well, I
matters,
can't,
man.
I'm so busy, I can't take the time to do that. And it's like, I get it, but
Well,
sometimes you need to have another resource. Like one of the things, I think we've discussed this before. I have a ton of friends on the East Coast that have nothing to do with the voiceover business whatsoever.
yeah.
And it's very refreshing because everybody on the West Coast is all voiceover
Interrelated,
based.
yeah.
It's invariably the conversation, how you don't, that's great.
All
in
work.
fact, I know we're irritated, but I brought my son's demo. He really is interested.
exactly.
Here it goes. And I mean, there's always that
Can't get away
element.
from it. Yeah.
Owning a studio obviously is probably different because you run into that concept. Well, this is my in and
More
that
so,
kind of thing, which is fine. But after a while, I mean, that was one of the reasons I bought a place to get away was
Yeah.
just like, there does come a point in your life where you go, look, this is wonderful. I love it. It's afforded me a life and lifestyle that is so far and beyond, all the celeb stuff and all of that. I never pictured that ever.
Yeah.
It just, and it's been an incredible,
Of
amazing,
course.
amazing ride.
But it's very consuming, like what you
Yeah,
said before. It becomes
and
very
to get to that
all-consuming.
point, like you said, to get all of those different cookie jars, you need to bust your ass. And I can't tell you how many nights I spent sleeping on the couch at the studio to make sure stuff was done and timely and done, because there wasn't digital at that time, and it was real
Yeah,
time and
exactly.
so it's, and just look at that as get yourself as many different things going as
Yeah, of
possible,
course.
and also, talk to somebody if you want, and see what, there's a whole bunch of ways to do that. You've spent money on equipment, spend, an hour with me, with whatever, and talk about business. What do I do?
Yeah,
How do I do? Is there where should I go to do this, to do that?
absolutely.
Because everybody has different, opinions, and I get that. I'm not, the
Different career
all-knowing,
paths.
all-seeing, but I've been doing
Yeah,
this a long, long time,
yeah.
and so, you kind of know where that's going and what the route is and who's good and who's not good. I've had people go da da da, and it's like, yeah, man, I hate to tell you, but that's a scam. Don't do it.
There's so
You
many
know.
of them out there. It's so sad
Oh
to
yeah.
watch. That's never changed. So in regards to the animation I'm doing right now, so I do it all from home. And so I think because they're used to me requesting all my auditions from home and they let me, that they assume I won't come in for jobs. So I'm doing this animation and I think I'm the only one doing it from home. And I've got to tell you, I had FOMO because I'm hearing all the talent in the studio having a great time, all doing things together. And here
So,
I
oh yeah.
am. I'm at
Sure.
home and I'm like, okay, well, I don't like that. Like I thought it was cool that I was at home until I knew everybody else was there. And it's like, oh, oops, oops. So as you get more experienced, as you become someone more known in the industry or more reliable in the industry or someone who works a lot, you become like a top tier of your agent roster. And when you become a top tier of your agent roster, that also probably means you already know all the casting directors, you probably already know the decision makers, a lot of maybe not the clients because they change all the time,
Mhm.
but you get to be familiar. And when you're familiar, that's when they're going to go above and beyond for you, where you can take 3 weeks off, where you can say, no, I can't come in, where you can ask to be paid to do the auditions. But that takes time to get there. So there's this earnship that happens in your career where in the beginning there's a sense of desperation, there's a sense of eagerness, a sense of wanting to please people, so you'll do anything. That's not necessarily the best place to be either, but we
Well,
understand
the
it
other
because we've
thing,
been there.
but the other thing too is competitiveness, and people,
Yeah.
I've had people that I go, oh well, this no, but the video game thing, I mean, I really would love to do that, but it's way too competitive, and it's like it's no more competitive than any business.
True.
It doesn't. If you're an IT person, you don't send
Yeah.
out 5 resumes and go, well, nothing's happening. You send out 500. And
Exactly.
no, it may not be the precise exact job that you want at the exact amount of money, but the more you keep plugging away at that, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and you just need to keep engaged in what you're doing. And the thing is too that a lot of people miss the fact that this is a business.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's creative. Yes, I love it. I've never done anything else. It's wonderful, and it's been affording me all kinds of stuff, and that's great. But it is a business,
Yeah.
and you have to approach it that way rather than I've got I know a couple of guys that are musicians that are just so like, so what do you? Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like, well, what's coming in from BMI or ASCAP? No, not really.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you just need to keep. No, I'm not Mr. Anal Financial. Yeah, okay, this, but I always have a general knowledge of this is here, that's coming up, this needs to be
Yeah.
done, da da da. And because if I actually sat down and went, okay, I need $81,492 a month to break even, I would probably have an aneurysm. So I don't look at it that way. I
No.
just go like, yeah, okay, this is happening, that's in there, and realizing that this just keeps, moving along and keeps stuff going.
Yeah.
The thing is too, starting out, if the best possible thing you can do is if you want to do something as a freebie for somebody to get your feet wet, go to a college and get in bed with somebody that's in film school, that's in, that kind of thing, because those are the guys that in another 10 years are going to be doing stuff, and you help them out. That may be, but all of this, giving you, because of their YouTube channel, it's like, well, somebody is making money off of that, and it's not you. And it doesn't mean, money, 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 but, again, you've got a vested interest. I mean, you've spent money on equipment and training and all, and it's not cheap. It's way cheaper than if you were opening a brick and mortar store.
Yeah.
So look at it in that context. But people want to go, so, oh, well, $300. I mean, and it's like, what do you think?
I know.
It's not like you're just going to go, okay, I'm here. I've got a computer built in 1968 and I'm ready to go.
You've got a few things that I want to discuss. So first of all, the business side of things, this is 50% business, 50% skill set and who you know. And so that business side of it, I didn't realize I was addicted to business. I was an only child, and I would create my own grocery store in my basement, and I would grab all my mom's old credit cards and checkbooks, and I would pretend business. And I didn't know I liked business. I had no idea I liked business. I was never trained in business, but yet I know business. And I learned, like with my band right now, my band are old school band members. I am not. I am a new band member. I'm not old school at this. And for them, back in the day, things just happened. You just got into things. They didn't have to work as hard in the business side. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say it that way, because of course they had to work hard. But if they didn't work hard, that's why they probably didn't go anywhere, because they waited for it to come to them. And you can't do that. So with my band right now, it's probably the hardest shop in the world is shopping out music right now. Live music or originals for any band member is so hard, because there's no money to be made in it. And it's like, I know a music supervisor I have, where the bands came in and they basically bought all their rights to it, and the bands made nothing. Like, they lost their business savvy in the 80s and stuff like that, and they lost a lot of money to the people that understood business. So it's so important that you treat it as your business, not their business, because the voice acting industry, you are everything about that business. And
the thing is sit down and give yourself, even if you don't have a business background, come up with some sort of a at least a broad-based plan. Yeah. Like, okay, this is going to do this, and don't expect immediate. You can get immediate returns. You can book stuff immediately, and you hear that all the time. Oh yeah, I booked this. And then that was it for the next, so it's that can happen. So have, like you said, as many cookie jars, as many, sticks in the fire. So you've got things going. If this isn't happening, that's happening in my engineering. And while that's going, I'm doing this. And, so it's, you've constantly got something else that you're working on, and set aside time for, marketing yourself, and don't overwhelm, keep it realistic, give yourself a half an hour every day, give yourself, do this, do that. Don't try and do this wall of stuff. Yeah, it's actually not overly complicated. No. It's just a matter of taking of specifics, and you can fly on this.
And absolutely. I think a lot of people in this industry are very much ADHD, autistic, all those kind of things, which we see a lot in this industry. Therefore, we get very scattered. We have one idea, and then we go to another idea, and we go to another idea. And ADHD is all about not finishing tasks. Oh, yeah. So a lot of people have the initial drive, but not the follow through. And if you go back and listen to any of our podcasts, or even listen to the other pros and their podcasts, you will hear those Fortune 500 stories, which is you slept on the couch, you worked 24 hours, you took a studio with you everywhere you went. We worked really hard to make this what it is. It wasn't like it was just given to us. Even for someone like Mark is a great story of someone who grew up in the LA market. He was there. He was right there in there with his father. There was opportunities and avenues that happened, but it didn't just happen. It didn't just come really easy. There was
But
a
see,
lot
but
of struggles that
what's
came on
funny with
through
that is like my dad had nothing to do with anything. I mean,
Nothing.
it never, because he didn't believe in it. He thought I was full of shit. It was like, you're smoking pot, what's the
Yeah.
matter with you? And so that's back to, even though you may have people close within your inner circle, whether it's
Judging it.
family,
Yeah.
partner, kids, etc., you are the one that has to have this vision of where you want to be and work toward that. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be all consuming and that's all you do and it's all,
Yeah.
broaden your horizon kind of thing. Really it's that classical, you are working to support your family, not, having to support work. I mean, that's the key.
And they do say if you love your work, you never worked a day in your life. Well,
Mhm.
yes and no, because I'm still working. I'm still not able to go and just be bored today. I still have I mean, I can choose to work less.
Right.
I can choose to make other choices, but I do love my industry. I do love what I do. And so I'm impassioned by it. So it drives me. So that's where they feel like it's not work. But just know in the beginning, it may be very desperate. It may be very, you may be very needy, but that will all change. Just like as we age, we get more comfortable in our skin and we gain
Well, you
confidence.
have to realize too that in this business, very, very, very rarely do you hear, "Ah, that was great. You were that close." You're not going to hear that. It's like if you you will get a call back. You'll get put on a veil, and for those of you who know, a veil simply means what's your availability next week. It doesn't mean you booked it.
Yeah.
It means that you're on a veil.
And you got to
If you're
keep
on a
that day booked off,
you know,
by the way, and
yeah,
they
and that's
never hire you.
yeah, and that's and so that kind of stuff happens. But that's about as much as you hear. Very rarely do you hear, oh, I've had a couple of gigs where I was down to you and one other person. You got it, or more than often that they went with the other guy, and it's like
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
and it's like rather than crushed, it's like I get it. I mean, that's all part of the game,
It happens. I know.
and it's like anything else. You learn the ins and outs, and the key is don't beat yourself up. This is what you decided to do. You've obviously have some talent, otherwise, it wouldn't be going as far as it's gotten so far. So
Yeah.
just, keep yourself in that mode and just keep focused, keep your eye on the prize, but don't overwhelm yourself because you're not getting feedback, because in this business
Yeah.
you don't.
You don't. And that's where it's very nice that in this generation, you do have coaches that can give you feedback. You do have people that can help you that we did not have in the beginning of our craft, because that just wasn't as big as it is now, and there wasn't as many people doing it. I also want to go back to something you said earlier too, and we probably talked about this before, but scheduling is a big part of what I feel a lot of people don't follow through with. And so you'll start, and I think, like, I'm a very driven person. I think you're a very driven person. I think most of the people that are veterans in this industry are. And so you have people that are younger generation that are not driven now because they're not forced to be driven. The way society is now, it makes for a very lazy society. And so you have to be okay to push yourself to a place that other people might not feel it's normal, and you might have to sacrifice some things a lot in the beginning, but that's all part of the program that comes back to you in the end. And what time you put in is what you will get out. So what I recommend is, if you guys, a lot of you are working already on a full-time job and you're part-time doing this, you're dabbling in it, you're working towards trying to get to that place of part-time voicing so you can get into full-time voicing. And you don't quit your day job until the industry decides it for you. That's when you make that decision. And every one of us had to come to that crossroads at some point, especially in the non-union world, of when do I quit my day job to do this full-time? And there is a risk factor in that. But if you guys could set up a schedule for yourself, so even if you're working full-time, whatever hours you can afford is what you should do.
But the
But
schedule, and
look at
that's really important. But the
Yeah.
thing too is, don't put life on the back burner
No, of
simply
course
for
not.
your career. If you've got, if your kids have a
You would,
soccer
yeah.
game Saturday morning, the audition can wait until you get home, or it can wait until whatever you need to do, or, get yourself up a little bit earlier and get that done out of the way. And then you can go hang out. Don't put that stuff off just because I'm a voiceover. It's like, because it's, I feel very blessed in that I was probably the only dad that was at all of my daughter's functions because of what I do.
Yeah.
And so, but that's now, that's paid off, and they've turned out great and all own their own homes and are great, not on drugs, knock on wood, and grandkids. But you can tell that it turned out well. My feeling in life has always been never reach a point where you go, God, I wish I would have. And I don't have any of those. So that's, and that's the key. Just grab that balance.
Exactly. But I want to go back to the scheduling conversation for a second. So with scheduling, guys, what I want you to consider is, now I'm not diagnosed with anything. I'm assuming I have ADHD tendencies, but I'm also a point prover. I need to prove a point. And that point I'm proving is only to myself, because I need to finish things before I move on to something else. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got a million things going at once, but I work really hard. Even if I can only put 5 minutes into that day, just 5 minutes into whatever is on my list. I myself keep a list, and that list is always ever changing and always growing. And I never take anything off the list, even if it's 2 years old. I always leave it on until I finish that task off. So what I tell students to do is, some of you are not very good at working under your own rule. So you're not driven enough to follow through with your things. So imagine Mark or myself telling you owe us this by the end of the week. And then you make it so that you're answering to someone as if you were in a regular job, because some people don't work well as a freelance. They work much better someone telling them how to do it, when to do it. And so
that's very true.
Try and create that rule for yourself, that someone is telling you that by the end of this week, you must have put in this many hours to marketing, this many hours to learning craft, this many hours to auditioning, this many hours to. So in the beginning, some of you are training, some of you are putting away. So for example, I teach Tuesdays. I tell all my Tuesday students, you have accustomed to Tuesdays for 8 weeks straight on these courses. Therefore, you can accustom to Tuesdays for the rest of your life and maintain this routine that you've done, but maybe you're going to do marketing, maybe you're going to do audition, maybe you're going to do whatever that is. So give yourselves realistic time frames of what your schedule needs. So if it's an hour of marketing, awesome. If it's 10 minutes of marketing, awesome. Don't just not do it.
Exactly.
If you do just a little bit every day, and you're probably like me where you're ADHD and you got a million things you want to do. If you do just a little bit, I feel so accomplished at the end of the day, even if I didn't finish it, because I'm a turtle. And I'm not a slow person. I'm a very fast person, but I'm a turtle when it comes to other things. I believe slow and steady wins the race versus always trying to get everything done in a hurry. So I believe if you put a little bit of everything in, it eventually gets done, and it gets done right, instead of in a way that is overwhelming. And you don't want to put yourself in an overwhelming place, because I think now that I look back at it, as if I was a student absorbing all the information that's out there now, I'd be very overwhelmed. It's very overwhelming. There's too many options. There's too many solutions. There's too many coaches. There's too many things to do.
Very much so.
You've got to find yourself.
And again, if you have a question, to reach out. On that note, I got to go because I've got clients that are source connecting me right as we speak.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks guys for tuning in today. We will see you again next time. I am Deb Monroe.
And I'm Mark Rowe, and this is
The Nitty Gritty.
Nitty Gritty.
See you
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.
A podcast with no boundaries that tells it like it is.
This ain't your mama's show.
This is The Nitty Gritty.